Does your garden suffer from aggressive plants? Have you considered professional help? Any landscaper can help with the invasive kind. After all, everybody has to deal with things like crabgrass and bindweed and dandelions. Some of our competitors might offer to deal with the ones that will mess you up if you touch them. Stinging nettle, poison ivy, giant hogweed all come to mind. But here at Blackheart's Green Thumbs, we take care of all those and so many more. Trying to keep your crops growing without a bunch of pesky kids getting murdered in the fields? Blackheart's Green Thumbs can help. Are your trees reaching out and touching you in all the most inappropriate ways? Blackheart's Green Thumbs can help. Have your neighbors been disappearing ever since those alien plant pods started growing in the vacant lot at the end of the street? Blackheart's Green Thumbs can help. Anybody can pull weeds, but it takes real expertise to bargain with our green frenemies and come away with a deal that ensures everyone is happy. Mention hearing this ad on Sinister Minutes and get a free consultation today. No obligation. Blackheart's Green Thumbs will deal with the plants that are truly evil, so you don't have to. Interested in a career in malevolent flora management? Blackheart's Green Thumbs is currently hiring. Got a minute or two? We have a way to make it not okay. Welcome to Sinister Minutes. I'm your host, writer and storyteller Kurt Homan. Next to me is the mad maestro, the master of macabre musical musings, Tim Parker. Together, let us take you on a journey into the dark heart of disturbing. Here at Sinister Minutes, we appreciate all you lovely, not okay people for listening, for supporting us, for sharing Sinister Minutes with everyone you know, for hitting like wherever you listen to us, for subscribing, for visiting us at sinisterminutes.com, for submitting your stories. Tim and I love your stories. Sinister Minutes. It's not okay. Content featured on the Sinister Minutes podcast can get pretty dark, but you know what? We expect our listeners to deal with that. Whatever triggers you, whatever your phobias, we're gonna delve in. What is that crawling up the back of your neck? Don't swat it. Any sudden moves might startle that rattler behind you. Get away, but then the elevator breaks down. Wow, those walls close in fast. Maybe a vacation is in order from all this stress, so fasten your seatbelts. Damn this turbulence. Maybe we'll have to jump from 20,000 feet. Sweating yet? Relax. Out in the open. We just hope you don't suddenly need someplace to hide from the crackling lightning and booming thunder. Great! You made it indoors? Ooh, you didn't touch that doorknob, did you? That thing is crawling. The doc can fix you up. Here she comes. My, what a long needle. That's gonna hurt. Sinister Minutes. Here to make you face all your fears and reassure you that yes, they're all perfectly rational and perfectly not okay. Welcome to Sinister Minutes, Season 3, Episode 11. This episode marks a return visit from guest author Nicholas Kellogg, who brings us a piece called Its Grip is Getting Tighter. Nicholas weaves chilling tales from his home in Connecticut, where every morning prior to work he creates nightmares, while many are still having them, drawing inspiration from the eerie realities of everyday life, while exploring the darkness beneath the ordinary. Then we're going to do a short little piece of mine that seemed very seasonal. I call it Pride Corn. After that spectacle, Tim's tickling of the ivories and stroking of the strings is coming at a much steeper price with a new piece entitled Every Note a Knife. Here at Sinister Minutes, we honor and appreciate all the magnificent forces of nature, especially the ones that leave us naked, strung up in trees, jabbed through with sharp thorns, and feeling 100% not okay. Its grip is getting tighter. Written by Nicholas Kellogg. Narrated by Kurt Homan. My name is Rupert Burney, and I've never been afraid of the woods. That is, I used to never be afraid of the woods. Sorry, I'm doing my best. It's been a while since putting my thoughts on paper. The task of writing has and will always be strenuous at best, and with the lack of sleep I've been having and the fear that it's instilled in my heart, I don't know how frantic or disillusioned this drabble may seem. I surely don't want to be perceived as the drabble from an insane man, an insane father. This is not that. It's the truth. I swear it's so. And when my wife arrives home from her shift, I'll try my best to convince her we need to move. The same as the reader. When I was a little boy, not yet turned 10, I'd bring my action figures into the woods and imagine them battling in faraway lands. When I was a teenager, I'd run in those same woods with my headphones in my ears and the volume turned fully up, while pretending I was the lead singer and those crowds were cheering my name. When I was a younger man, not yet old enough to live without the support of my parents, but old and bold enough to seek out the opposite sex with instinctual ferocity, I'd bring those lucky ladies into the woods. Nothing creepy. A blanket, a picnic in the woods by a stream that was located somewhat close to my parents' place, so I knew we'd have somewhere to go after the deed had been done. What I'm trying to say is I've always been comfortable in the woods. I've walked them my entire life and never felt insecure while dwelling within circumscribed boundaries of those wooden walls. That is, until yesterday. There's a reservoir in my woods, and there are signs emblazoned with the words, "Keep out." But they couldn't stop me if they tried. I walk through these woods, wending my way around the bends, and the natural conifers give me shade as I complete the ritual. I move indolently, as if I have all the time in the world, and that used to be the case before we had children. Ryder was born in early fall, and I'd walk her in these woods almost every day to give her mother a break whenever our time seemed to have had the life squeezed from its neck. Next came Jane, my beautiful little girl whose skin was so pale it appeared angelic as she fell into the world and shined brightly. They are my girls. I am their father. And we walk in the woods every day the conniving weather permits it. We throw rocks in the streams as we roam. My girls will sometimes look at the variegated clouds and tell me what their shapes aspire to be. Sometimes a storm will pass above and we'll hide under the trees, giggling joyfully and trying our best not to get wet, but it wouldn't be a big deal, even if we had. I'm sure this all sounds like a hoot, and if I'm being honest, it's made me smile while writing it, and I've enjoyed the time spent doing so. I'm not going to enjoy the next part. I've decided to connect my fingers to my brain and divulge the reason my girls and I will not be going into the forest any longer. And if I see someone heading for the paths, I'll yell at them to stay away. I've already considered getting flyers and stapling them on the trees. The trees. How does one know which ones are the bad ones? How does one know which life spreads like disease with pernicious abilities? The kinds of abilities that literally take root and attach themselves to small children walking wistfully amongst the shaded parts of the innocuous dirt paths. You see, the day started, and most of our days do. My wife, bless her for the work she does keeping this family together. I mean it. My wife is a nurse, and she headed to work, and it was time for me to show my worth by taking care of the children. In the spring, the season it is now, we usually do the majority of our walking in the woods. The summer bugs are still dwelling mostly underground and are few and far between. The heat and cold isn't as temperamental as it will be starting next month, so my girls and I usually walk the trails between 4 and 5 times a week. I enjoy it. As I've said before, I couldn't for the longest time imagine not having that option. It feels like home. It is home. Anyway, we headed toward the trails and stopped at a little park on the way there, my oldest sliding on her belly down the slide and ululating loudly like we weren't in someone else's neighborhood. I think that's my favorite thing about children. Ignorance, the preordained determination of fun that always seems to rule their bodies and direct them to places of the unknown. My daughter, Ryder, always had a keen understanding of her body and an insatiable appetite for exploring new territories. The girls played for a little bit longer before we traversed the downward trail and headed into the forest. We took our time. There were rocks that needed to be thrown at trees and logs that needed to be imagined as bridges over large chasms that the slightest misstep would lead to a deadly fall. My youngest, she followed her sister as if she were the sun, and I walked while watching longingly at the life I'd helped bring into the world. I sometimes take that for granted. I can admit that in these words, but not usually with my tongue. And when I look to my right while I'm walking behind our little girls, I can sometimes see Amy's silhouette walking next to me. I know I should tell her, but I probably won't. That's my cross to bear. We moved at our normal, leisurely pace until ending up where the journey usually ended, a little stream about a half-mile into the woods. There are frogs in the summer, sometimes in the spring, but it had been too cold the night before for me to think we'd have any such luck. My oldest standing on a large rock with an even bigger stick, pretending she was catching fish that were made of leaves. Jane held my hand and picked up tiny pebbles, as she always does, and tossed them into the stream, allowing the mud to engulf her shoes and tempting fate as she stood extra close, surely wondering how much slack her daddy would give her. We played for a while. Nothing was out of place. It was a normal day, and it was even a blessed day, because when I told my children it was time to go, they didn't fuss. My youngest kept connected to my hand, and my oldest scouted different paths behind, but stayed within my line of sight without wandering too far. Jane and I had made it to the clearing at the end of the path, and I patiently waited to see my oldest skipping down the trail behind us. She'd be holding a stick or a flower or a handful of rocks or anything that she'd try and bring inside, much to her mother's chagrin. But the seconds turned into minutes, and I began getting worried. The grip in my hand tightened from Jane, and I could sense she felt it too. We walked into the forest. I called Ryder's name loudly, but there was no answer. Then, when we rounded the bend, I saw her standing on the edge of the timberline. "Dad," she said. She didn't sound like she was worried. She sounded like she was shocked about what was happening. "I'm stuck." I shook my head. You see, all parents know not to fall into the trap of seriousness or concern when their young children claim to be stuck. They're usually full of shit, so I thought nothing of it and almost turned back toward the road with my youngest slightly infuriated. "Shake your arm," I said, and I sounded abrasive. I needed to get home and make the girls dinner, and I had some work left over from earlier that was in desperate need of attention. "Shake it loose." I watched my little girl try. She tried hard, jumping up and down and twirling as though she were at dance, rather than the woods with her sister and old man. "Dad," she said, "its grip is getting tighter." Its grip is getting tighter. Has anyone ever muttered such a scarier phrase? The hair on the back of my neck erected and began to bite my skin. I picked up my youngest because that's all I could think of doing, even though she'd surely handicap me if I needed to fight. Its grip was getting tighter. I ran toward my daughter, who was now on her knees and still desperately trying to dislodge herself from some unforeseen foe. When I approached, I believed she was still only attached to a tree. I believed that she'd only misspoken, and the sheer tenebrific connotation of my daughter's statement was misaligned. But then, while holding Jane in one arm close to my heart and reaching my other arm down to touch the wrist that had been snagged by the forest, I saw the wooden hand. It wasn't a branch. It wasn't a root. It was a hand. The kind of hand that humans have, only it was made of wood. And before I ripped away at it, I looked to see what the wooden hand was attached to. My eyes popped from my skull in sheer terror as I found the answer to the question I needed answered. A wooden face glowering at me with a slavering facade. It had my little girl, and the grip was getting tighter. I rammed myself forward, using my free shoulder and throwing all my weight into the wooden man, sending him backwards and separating his arm slightly before bringing my knee down on it like I was creating a piece of firewood. The man didn't scream. The arm of the man snapped, but the hand's grip remained on my daughter's wrist despite her being free. "Run!" I yelled, and the three of us made our way toward the street while the forest came alive around us. Sticks snapped, leaves fell as though the entire forest was being shaken like a snow globe. There were high-pitched squeals and slight inhuman clicks amongst the trees from highest peak to lowest dirt. My daughters held on to me as I carried them both against my chest, and we spilled out onto the sidewalk, where we almost fell into a dog being walked by one of our neighbors. She looked at me, fear on her face, and knelt beside the three of us. "Are you all right?" she asked as her dog barked incessantly into the woods at what had been chasing us. "Fine," I said, over my crying little girls. We just got a little spooked, that's all." I didn't want everyone in the neighborhood to think I was some lunatic. When we arrived back home, my youngest went to bed on my lap as I examined the hand on my oldest daughter's arm. Its grip was tight, but I used a little knife to cut the fingers and remove it from her poor, punctured skin. She smiled when it was finally off, and the two of us watched a movie. She's too young to discuss what we witnessed out there in those woods. Hell, I don't even know what we witnessed, and I'm sure as shit gonna have a hard time explaining it to Amy when she gets home from her shift. We will be moving, though. I can guarantee you that. The wooden hand is sitting on my kitchen table, and I'm awaiting my wife's arrival because there isn't a chance in hell I'm gonna sleep tonight. I've been drinking bourbon, the good stuff, the kind of stuff one drinks at the end of the world because there isn't a point not to. I hadn't had a glass of it since Jane was born, but I suppose this is as good of a time as any to start up once more. I can't help but stare into the backyard. The trees are moving unnaturally, and it appears they are closer to the back porch than normal. I hope they don't have any hard feelings over the hand, and I sure hope they don't know how to unlock doors. Pride Corn, written and narrated by Kurt Homan. In hindsight, a pride parade in Nebraska was absolutely the only place the revolution could have started. But you know what they say about hindsight always being 20/20. Beforehand, everybody expected it was going to be one of the usual places, New York or Portland, maybe San Fran. But Nebraska? The whole state's a massive inland ocean, one made up entirely of corn. And oh, that old saw about knee-high by the 4th of July? Slip out of Omaha around then and you'll get to see how tall corn really grows. It's probably the GMO stuff. All that gene splicing with fish parts somehow created those monsters out in the field. You don't care about corn? You should. Corn didn't start the revolution, but it sure as hell played a part. See, corn's what they call a hermaphrodite, male and female all at once. That makes it a good emblem for trans and non-binary folks, and bisexuals adopted it too. Once that happened, the usual right-wing nuts, pundits, podcasters, and other rabble started yelling about gay agenda scientists trying to subvert God-fearing Americans. Real scientists tried to explain, but nobody ever wants to listen to anything so rational. Well, in the days leading up to the Omaha Pride Parade, that's in July because the organizers never could manage to get anything scheduled during Pride Month itself, the stalks outside the city limits were pushing 8 feet high. Folks were getting lost in the fields, trying to snatch themselves a few decorations for their floats and signs. Local farmers don't care too much. Recall what I said about oceans of corn? These people were stealing a cup of water from the Atlantic. It was the parade itself where things got set off. See, a couple of those wingnuts had gotten themselves an audience with the president, and his idiocy decided to send a representative to the parade. He must have figured he'd kill 2 birds. That poor messenger was forced to stand up and declare that the parade needed to stop because pride had been declared subversive. Oh, and so had corn. That fool was lucky to escape without a thick layer of tar and feathers replacing his usual sunscreen routine. Pissing off 100,000 gay Nebraskans would have been bad enough, but cutting off the Cornhusker state from its cash crop? Nebraska turned against Washington that same day, and the whole Midwest fell into step, no matter how much his idiocy backpedaled. Money talks, bullshit walks. Every farmer knows that. The first ear of sweet corn displaying the rainbow variant appeared at a farm stand outside of Lincoln a week later. Folks took that as a sign. Every Note a Knife. Composed and performed by Tim Parker. Sinister Minutes is presented by Kurt Homan and Tim Parker. The musical score was composed and performed by Tim Parker. Our production team consists of Kurt Homan and Tim Parker. On behalf of everyone here at the Sinister Minutes podcast, namely Kurt Homan and Tim Parker, we thank you for listening, for joining us as we explore all the ways in which we are not okay. This audio program is copyright by Kurt Homan and Tim Parker under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.